I've been working as a long-haul truck driver across Europe for several years. I know all the nuances, where the police speed checks are, where the well-lit parking areas are, and where it's best to grab a bite. But even an experienced driver isn't immune to Nepriatny surprises. This happened on a highway in France. Around 1 a.m., I was looking for a place to make a short stop. The parking area was half empty. A few trucks near a gas station, dim lighting. As I was getting ready to sleep, I noticed a few women standing nearby. That wasn't unusual for such highways, but they moved in a particular way, watching drivers, picking those who seemed alone and tired. I parked my truck farther from the main flow, closed the curtains, and checked the door locks. I even fastened a seatbelt through the door handle, a small trick that had once saved my vehicle during a break-in attempt. I was almost asleep when I heard quiet footsteps near the cab. I turned on a small light inside and saw one of the women come closer. She smiled, winked, and said something in French that I didn't understand, but her tone was friendly and relaxed. She started talking to me as if she just wanted a conversation. At first I stayed alert, but I didn't expect the small interaction to turn into a serious danger. The woman distracted me, asking where I was from, where I was headed, whether I wanted to relax after a long day. She seemed so natural that I almost let my guard down. While listening to her, I heard faint noises from the side of the trailer. At first I ignored them, but then I realized someone was tampering with the rear door lock. My heart skipped. My experience told me this could be a group of thieves. I moved the curtain aside and saw two men in dark clothing carefully cutting the trailer tarp. They worked quietly and efficiently, like they knew exactly what they were doing, and I stood there trying not to show panic, still talking to the woman who kept distracting me with smiles and conversation. It was a classic example of the driver distraction scheme used in certain highway zones where prostitutes and thieves operate. It's simple but effective. 1. Choose a lone driver, usually tired, stopped at night in a dim parking area. 2. A woman approaches and distracts him with conversation, compliments, offers, or simple questions about the route. 3. Criminals work simultaneously, quietly opening the trailer, tampering with locks, or cutting the tarp. 4. Time is limited. Within minutes, they can transfer valuable cargo into an accomplice vehicle. Drivers encountering this for the first time often don't suspect a double intention. The woman seems friendly, you start talking, get distracted, and your cargo's already being stolen. I immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. The belt on the door kept the cab secure, and I turned on full interior lighting. The woman paused, looked at me in surprise, and stepped back. The thieves froze, became cautious, and moved a few meters away. I quickly started the engine and triggered the alarm. That was enough for them to understand. This wasn't an easy target. Highway scam schemes are refined over years, each action carefully designed to disable a driver's instinct for self-preservation. It's not brute force, but subtle manipulation based on the psychology and physiology of a tired person. 1. The Sleeping Beauty Scheme, sedatives. One of the most dangerous methods. The woman enters the cab not just for services, but with treats. She may offer beer or coffee. How it works. A strong sedative or psychotropic substance is mixed into the drink. Result, the driver falls asleep within 10 to 15 minutes. Accomplices enter and steal cash, documents, fuel cards, and expensive equipment. Sometimes fuel is drained or the trailer is emptied. The driver wakes up the next day when the criminals are already gone. 2. The third wheel scheme, distraction, designed for drivers who remain alert but only on one side. It's how it works. The woman engages the driver at the driver's window, talking loudly, joking, or even creating mild conflict to capture full attention. Result. Meanwhile, an accomplice sneaks up from the passenger side, unlocks the door within seconds, grabs a bag, and disappears. The woman leaves immediately afterward. 3. Blackmail and hysteria common in countries with strict laws. How it works. After or during interaction, the woman suddenly demands much more money or claims to be underage. Result, if the driver refuses, she causes a scene, threatening police involvement or false accusations. Many drivers pay just to avoid trouble. 4. The Scout Mechanic Scheme, a more sophisticated cargo-focused method. How it works. The woman casually asks about the route and cargo, sometimes checking documents. Result, if the cargo is valuable, she marks the trailer. At the next stop, a professional theft group is already waiting. 5. The Pickpocket Scheme, a classic in tight cab spaces. How it works. During distraction or physical contact, money is stolen from pockets or wallets. Result. The driver often notices only hours later. These schemes work because they target weaknesses, fatigue, the desire to relax, and fear of legal trouble. For these women, a driver isn't a person, it's a target to process quickly and efficiently. I've learned not to fall for distractions. Even if someone seems friendly, I immediately check. Doors locked, belt in place, trailer secured, lights on. My experience shows criminals usually work in groups. One distracts, another checks locks, a third prepares cargo. It all takes minutes, but that's enough for serious damage. Over time, I began to see how organized groups turn these highway zones into structured operations. They know where drivers are most vulnerable, tired, alone, in dark parking areas. The women don't just offer services, they observe, assess, and signal accomplices. And that's the scariest part. You think you're just driving and stopping to rest, but someone may already be planning the theft, using distraction as a tool. That night taught me two things. One, never underestimate small safety measures, they can save everything. Two, even when nothing seems to be happening, risk is always there. Now every stop is a checklist. Where I park, who's nearby, lights on, belt secured. Only then can I sleep peacefully. Because roads are long and the world hiding in the shadows of highways isn't always safe. And if you dig a little deeper, you start to realize that the situation varies a lot depending on the country and the route. For example, drivers who regularly pass through France have known for a long time it's one of the most problematic areas in Europe, especially the northern regions and routes leading to ports. Cargo thefts, cut tarps, and attempts to break into cabs are reported there on a regular basis. Some drivers even avoid stopping overnight in certain areas if they have the option to keep driving. In Germany, the situation is slightly better in terms of infrastructure, more well-lit and paid parking areas, more control. But that doesn't mean it's safe. On the contrary, due to the large volume of transit traffic and high-value cargo, especially electronics and auto parts, criminals often operate in highly organized groups. Here, thefts are usually fast, precise, and well-planned. In Italy and Spain, drivers often talk about a different issue, fuel siphoning and smaller thefts. While you're asleep, someone can quietly drain diesel or take items from the trailer if it's not properly secured. In Eastern European countries like Poland, the situation has improved in recent years, but it still depends heavily on the specific parking area. Secured truck stops are relatively safe, but free roadside areas can still be risky. If we talk about the United Kingdom, there are frequent cases of so-called night unloading, where organized groups remove part of the cargo within minutes. This is especially common near ports and major logistics hubs. And in the United States, the scale is even larger. Thousands of cargo theft incidents are reported every year, with total losses reaching hundreds of millions of dollars. On average, that means dozens of incidents every single day across the country. And the methods are often different. Fake logistics companies, identity fraud involving drivers, or full truck hijackings. But no matter the country, one thing remains the same. Statistics only show the tip of the iceberg, because most of what happens at night in parking areas never gets reported. No report, no case. A driver wakes up, sees a cut tarp, calculates the loss, and keeps moving. The company writes it off, insurance may cover part of it, and that's it. But among drivers, these stories are shared differently, not as numbers, but as warnings. Don't stop there. Don't park after midnight. People walk around there at night, and when you hear it not once but dozens of times, you begin to understand. The road has its own rules, and official statistics are only a small part of what's really happening out there. Different people travel these roads, and not all of them have good intentions.